In a time long, long ago, when grandfathers told stories by the fire and grandmothers sang lullabies to the moon, there lived a girl named Emily. She made her home in a village so quiet you could hear the whispers of the wind through the tall trees that guarded its edges. This wasn't a village bustling with big city noises. Instead, it was a place where laughter echoed in the narrow lanes, and the smell of freshly baked bread filled the air each morning. Emily wasn't known for being the fastest runner or the loudest singer, but she had a special gift, one that set her apart from all the other children. Emily was known throughout the village for her beautiful dreams. Before we continue, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss a new video. And tell me, where are you watching this video from? I love seeing all different people come together for these stories. While other children dreamed of playing with puppies or eating sweet honey cakes, Emily's dreams were like colorful paintings, filled with bright stars and soft, glowing light. They weren't just simple pictures. Her dreams told stories, sometimes long and winding, sometimes short and sweet, but always full of wonder. When she woke up, her eyes would sparkle with the leftover magic of the night, and she could remember every little detail, from the color of a butterfly's wing to the soft rustle of leaves in a dream forest. Her mother often said, "Emily, your head is in the clouds even when your feet are on the ground." But she said it with a smile, proud of her daughter's special way of seeing the world. Emily didn't just dream when she was asleep. Sometimes, even during the day, her mind would wander, painting lovely pictures in her head. She saw beauty in everything: the way the sunlight danced on the river, the tiny flowers peeking through cracks in the old stone wall, even the patterns in the steam rising from her morning tea. These daydreams were like little windows into her imagination, preparing her for the truly magical nights. Her dreams were not scary or confusing. They were always gentle and kind, like a warm hug. Because of these wonderful dreams, Emily often felt a little different, as if she carried a secret world inside her. She loved to share parts of her dreams, describing shimmering rivers and talking animals to her friends, who would listen with wide eyes, wishing their own dreams were half as exciting. Little did Emily know, one of her beautiful dreams was about to become much more than just a dream. Emily's dreams were usually like soft whispers of magic, but one particular night, her dream was different. It wasn't just pretty pictures or talking animals. It felt grander, more important than any dream she'd had before. As the moon shone brightly through her window, painting silver stripes across her wooden floor, Emily drifted into a dream that would change everything. In this dream, she wasn't in her quiet village. Instead, she found herself in a beautiful garden filled with flowers that shimmered like jewels. Soft music, like the sound of wind chimes, played all around her. And there, standing before her, was a man. He was tall and kind-looking, with eyes that sparkled like the deepest parts of the night sky. His smile was gentle, making her feel safe and happy right away. Emily knew deep in her dreaming heart that she had never seen this man before, not in her village, not in any picture, not anywhere in her waking life. Yet, in her dream, he felt as familiar as her own reflection. He reached out his hand, and Emily, without a moment's hesitation, took it. His touch was warm and comforting, even though it was only a dream. He led her to a place under a big old tree, draped with glowing vines. There, a small, happy crowd of people, all with kind faces, watched them with smiles. They weren't strangers in her dream. They felt like friends and family, even though Emily couldn't remember ever meeting them. Then, something truly amazing happened. In her dream, she married this kind, handsome man. It wasn't a play act or a game. It felt real and important. She wore a dress made of moonlight, and he wore clothes as dark and rich as the earth. They promised to be together, and a warm, glowing light surrounded them, making her heart feel full of joy. It was the happiest moment she had ever known, even happier than finding a secret patch of wildflowers or listening to her grandmother's most exciting stories. This dream was more than just a dream. It was a memory she felt she would carry forever. As the first rays of morning sunshine peeked through her window, painting soft gold stripes across her room, Emily slowly opened her eyes. The happy, warm feeling from her dream was still wrapped around her, like a cozy blanket. She stretched, a big smile on her face, but then she felt something different. It wasn't just the happy feeling. It was a strange sense that her dream had been more than just a dream. It felt like it had really, truly happened. The garden, the music, the kind man with the sparkling eyes. It all felt as real as the wooden bed beneath her. Emily sat up, her heart still humming with the joy of her dream wedding. She looked around her room, half expecting to see traces of the magical garden. But everything was just as it always was. Her simple bed, her worn wooden chest, the little vase of wildflowers her mother had picked. It was just a dream, she whispered to herself, trying to make sense of the powerful feeling. But then, her eyes caught something on her pillow. Right next to where her head had rested, sparkling softly in the morning light, lay a small silver locket. It wasn't there when she went to bed. Emily knew for sure, as she always tidied her little space before sleeping. Her breath caught in her throat. Her fingers trembled a little as she reached out and picked it up. The locket was smooth and cool against her skin. It was shaped like a tiny heart, and on its front there was a delicate swirl pattern, like vines reaching for the sun. It looked very old, but also very beautiful. Emily gently opened it, hoping to find a tiny picture inside. But it was empty, just smooth, polished silver. Still, the locket itself was a wonder. Where had it come from? How had it gotten onto her pillow? A shiver ran down her spine, but it wasn't a cold shiver. It was a shiver of wonder and a little bit of fear. This locket was proof. A tiny, shiny piece of proof that her dream wasn't just in her head. It was as if the kind man from her dream had left her a gift, a secret sign. Emily held the locket tight in her hand, her mind buzzing with questions. Her dream, the beautiful wedding, and now this locket. It was all too real to be just a figment of her imagination. Still clutching the silver locket, Emily hurried downstairs, her heart thumping like a drum. She found her mother stirring porridge over the fire, and her father sharpening a tool at the kitchen table. "Mama! Papa!" she burst out, her voice a mix of excitement and wonder. "You won't believe what happened." Her mother turned, a gentle smile on her face. "What is it, little bird? Did you dream of dancing fairies again?" Emily shook her head vigorously, her long braids bouncing. "No, Mama, this was different. I had a dream, a real dream, where I married a kind, handsome man in a glowing garden. And look." She held out the silver locket, letting it catch the morning light. "I found this on my pillow when I woke up. It wasn't there last night." Her mother took the locket gently, turning it over in her fingers. "My, what a pretty little thing," she said, her eyebrows raised slightly. "Where did you find this, sweet pea?" "On my pillow. Just after my dream, Emily insisted, her voice full of earnest belief. Her father chuckled, a warm, rumbling sound. Ah, Emily, you and your wild imagination. You probably tucked that locket away somewhere and forgot about it. Or perhaps it's an old trinket of your grandmother's that found its way into your room. He patted her head kindly. A dream wedding, you say? How grand, but dreams are just stories our minds tell us, my dear. But it felt so real, Papa. And the locket, it's a sign, Emily pleaded, feeling a sting of disappointment. She knew her dreams were special, but this felt more important than anything before. Her mother handed the locket back to her. It's a lovely dream, darling, truly. And a beautiful locket. Perhaps you simply wished for a handsome husband so strongly that your mind made it real in your sleep. She gave Emily a comforting hug. Now, come eat your breakfast before it gets cold. You can tell us all about your dream husband later, but don't let your head get too full of silly fancies. Emily's shoulders drooped a little. They didn't understand. They thought it was just another one of her vivid dreams, a silly girl's fancy. They didn't see the magic, the realness she felt. She clutched the locket tightly, a secret warmth spreading through her fingers. Even if they didn't believe her, she knew, deep in her heart, that this dream was different. This dream and this locket meant something important. Even though her parents didn't understand, Emily held onto the silver locket and the memory of her special dream. She kept the locket hidden close to her heart, a secret treasure that only she knew the true meaning of. As days slowly melted into weeks, life in the quiet village went on. The sun rose and set, chores were done, and stories were told. But for Emily, something had changed deep inside. Every night, when she closed her eyes, Emily hoped to see him again. And almost every night, her wish came true. Her dreams were still beautiful, but now they often featured the kind, handsome man from her dream wedding. He didn't always speak, but his presence was a warm, comforting light. Sometimes they would walk through fields of glowing flowers. Sometimes they would sit by a shimmering lake. And sometimes he would simply smile at her, a smile that made her heart feel happy and safe. Each dream felt a little more real than the last. She learned the way his hair fell over his forehead, the soft sound of his dream laughter, the gentle way he would hold her hand. These weren't just fleeting images. They were like visiting a secret friend in a secret world. With every passing night, Emily felt herself growing closer to him. It was a closeness that felt stronger than any friendship she had in the waking world, a bond that grew deeper with each shared dream. She started to feel as if she knew him, even though she had only met him in her sleep. It was a strange feeling, like knowing someone without ever speaking their name. She would wake up in the mornings feeling refreshed and happy, still carrying the warmth of his presence. The dreams became her favorite part of the day, a special time when she could escape to a world where her heart felt completely understood. Emily would often look at the silver locket, now nestled under her pillow, and wonder if he was thinking of her too, wherever he might be. This dream husband, once a stranger, was becoming a very important part of her life, even if only in her sleep. As her bond with her dream husband grew stronger through her nightly visits, Emily's secret locket became even more precious. She kept it tucked safely under her pillow during the day, and sometimes, when she was alone, she would take it out and hold it gently in her hand. It was her special link to the wonderful world of her dreams, a tiny piece of proof that her heart knew was real. One sunny afternoon, Emily was sitting by the window, watching the butterflies dance in her mother's flower garden. Her mind, as it often did, began to wander to her dream husband. She thought of his kind smile, the way his eyes twinkled, and the warmth of his hand in hers. As these happy thoughts filled her head, she realized she was still holding the silver locket. Suddenly, a soft, faint light seemed to come from the locket itself. It wasn't a bright, flashing light, but a gentle, warm glow, like a tiny firefly caught inside. Emily gasped softly, her eyes wide with surprise. She blinked, wondering if her eyes were playing tricks on her. She looked away for a moment, then back at the locket. The glow was still there, a delicate shimmer that pulsed ever so slightly. Her heart began to beat a little faster. She thought of him again, focusing all her happy feelings about her dream husband onto the locket. And just as she did, the glow seemed to brighten a tiny bit more, like a whisper of magic answering her thoughts. When she thought of something else, like the chores she needed to do, the glow faded, becoming just a normal silver locket again. Emily tried it again and again. Each time she thought of her dream husband, the locket would hum with a soft, inner light. It was unmistakable. This wasn't just a pretty old trinket. It was connected to him, to her dreams. A thrilling question bloomed in her mind. If the locket could glow when she thought of him, and if it had appeared after her dream, could he be more than just a dream? Could he be real, somehow? The idea was both exciting and a little bit scary, making her wonder about the true magic hidden in her world. The glowing locket had planted a seed of wonder in Emily's heart, making her truly believe that her dream husband might exist beyond her sleep. She kept her secret close, watching and waiting for any sign that would help her understand the magic that had entered her life. One bright morning, the quiet rhythm of the village was broken by the cheerful jingle of bells. A traveling merchant had arrived, his cart piled high with colorful fabrics, shiny trinkets, and odd bits and bobs from faraway places. Villagers gathered around, eager to see what new wonders he had brought. Emily, always curious, joined the crowd, clutching her locket hidden in her pocket. The merchant, a friendly man with a twinkle in his eye and a beard as white as fresh snow, wasn't just selling goods. He was also a storyteller, known for sharing tales from all the lands he visited. As the sun began to dip low, casting long shadows, the villagers gathered around him, eager for a story. He cleared his throat and began to speak, his voice soft but clear. "I've traveled far and wide, seen many things both strange and true. And in an old village, not so different from this one, I heard a tale that lives in my heart still. It's about a ghost, a lonely spirit who isn't scary at all." Emily leaned forward, her heart giving a little thump. "This ghost," the merchant continued, "is said to be a kind soul, a man who lived long ago and loved his village very much. But a sad event kept him from finding peace. So, they say, he wanders, not to frighten, but to seek kindness. And in his loneliness, he visits the dreams of gentle-hearted folk, hoping to find someone who understands him." Emily's hand instinctively went to the locket in her pocket. A kind ghost who visits dreams. Her mind raced. Could it be? Was this merchant talking about her dream husband? The thought was both exciting and a little bit frightening. She listened closely, her whole body buzzing with a new, wild hope. Could the secret of her dreams, and her locket, be tied to this old, sad story. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as the merchant continued his story about the kind, dream-visiting ghost. Her fingers tightened around the locket in her pocket, a silent question forming in her mind. Could this truly be him? They say, the merchant's voice grew a little softer, that this ghost, in life, was a man of great goodness. He had eyes like the deepest part of the forest at twilight, and a smile that could calm a frightened child. His hair was dark, like a raven's wing, and he always carried himself with a gentle grace. He was known for his quiet strength, and for the kindness he showed to all living things, and a little silver locket, shaped like a heart, was always around his neck, a gift from someone he cherished deeply. With each word the merchant spoke, Emily felt a powerful wave of recognition wash over her. Eyes like the deepest forest, a smile that brought calm, dark hair. It was him. Every detail, every loving description matched the man she had married in her dream, the man who visited her nightly. And then the merchant mentioned the locket, a silver locket, shaped like a heart, always around his neck. Emily pulled her own locket from her pocket, holding it in her palm. It was exactly as he described. A gasp almost escaped her lips, but she held it in, not wanting to break the spell of the story. It was all too perfect, too exact to be a coincidence. Her dream husband, the man who felt so real, was the kind ghost from the merchant's tale. The mystery that had puzzled her for weeks, the reason for the locket, the reason for the dreams. It all suddenly clicked into place. He wasn't just a dream. He was a lonely spirit, reaching out to her. A strange mix of fear and excitement bubbled inside her. She had been right all along. Her dream was real, and the man was real, even if he was a ghost. The village, which had once seemed so small, suddenly felt filled with a hidden, powerful magic. The merchant's story had painted a vivid picture, a picture that was undeniably the man from Emily's dreams. Clutching her locket, Emily felt a whirlwind of feelings swirl inside her. It was a mix of wonder, surprise, and a shiver that ran from her toes to the top of her head. First, there was a spark of pure excitement. She had been right all along. Her dreams were not just silly fancies. They were real connections to something magical. The man, her kind, handsome dream husband, truly existed, even if he was a ghost. This was an amazing secret, a truth that only she seemed to know. It made her feel brave and special, like a character in one of her own fantastic dreams. But then, a small knot of fear began to tighten in her stomach. A ghost. The word itself sounded spooky, even if the merchant had described him as kind. What did it mean to be married to a ghost in her sleep? Would he be scary if she saw him in the waking world? What if he wasn't as gentle as he was in her dreams? These questions buzzed around her head like worried bees, making her heart beat a little faster. She looked at the other villagers, who were now talking among themselves about the merchant's tale, some with wide eyes, some with dismissive shrugs. None of them seemed to understand the deep meaning of the story for her. It was her secret, her connection. The fear was real, but so was the excitement, a powerful pull towards the unknown. Emily looked down at the locket in her hand, which seemed to pulse with a faint, warm light, as if trying to comfort her. The glow reminded her of his kind smile, his gentle touch in her dreams. No, she thought, he couldn't be truly frightening. He was the one who brought her joy and peace every night. The fear slowly started to fade, replaced by a strong feeling of curiosity and a brave resolve. She needed to know more. She needed to find out if her dream husband was indeed this lonely, kind ghost. The thought filled her with a new purpose, a quiet adventure that was just beginning. The merchant finished his story, packed his cart, and with a final jingle of bells, left the village. But for Emily, the world had changed. The mix of fear and excitement simmered inside her, pushing her towards a brave decision. She knew she had to find out if the ghost and her dream husband were truly one and the same. There was only one way to know for sure. The merchant had mentioned an old, forgotten house where the ghost was said to live. Everyone in the village knew the house he spoke of. It stood at the very edge of the village, a little way past the last garden fences, hidden mostly by overgrown trees and tangled bushes. The villagers called it the Old Stone House, or sometimes the Whispering House, and most people, especially the children, avoided it, whispering tales of creaking doors and cold breezes. But Emily wasn't most people. She thought of the kind smile of her dream husband, the gentle warmth of the locket in her pocket, and a wave of courage washed over her. She decided then and there that she would visit the old house. Not tonight, when the shadows were long and spooky, but in the bright light of morning, when the sun could chase away some of the scary feelings. The next morning, with the sun high in the sky and a clear blue sky above, Emily took a deep breath. She had her chores done early, telling her mother she was going to pick wildflowers by the river. Instead, she walked with purpose, her heart fluttering like a bird's wing, towards the edge of the village. The path grew narrower, the trees thicker, and soon she saw it. The old stone house stood silent and still, its windows like dark eyes staring out from under a heavy brow of ivy. The roof sagged a little, and some stones had fallen from its walls, making it look sad and tired. A gate, rusty and half open, groaned softly in the breeze. It looked exactly like a house where a lonely spirit might dwell. Emily felt a tiny shiver, but she held the locket tight, remembering its gentle glow, and pushed her brave little self forward. She had to go inside. She had to find answers. Taking another deep breath, Emily pushed open the creaking gate of the old stone house. The air inside the garden felt colder, even on a sunny day, and the silence was deep, broken only by the rustle of dry leaves under her feet. She walked slowly up the winding path, her eyes scanning the dark windows. With a small push, the heavy front door groaned open, revealing a shadowy hallway within. Inside, the house smelled of old wood and forgotten dust. Sunlight struggled to break through the grimy windows, painting dusty beams across the floor. Emily stepped carefully, her heart thumping, calling out softly, "Hello, is anyone here?" Only the echo of her own voice answered. She explored the quiet rooms, each one covered in cobwebs and a thick layer of dust. Empty bookshelves stood against the walls, and a broken chair lay overturned in a corner. It was sad and lonely, just as the merchant had described the ghost. Emily felt a pang of sympathy for the lonely spirit. Then, in what must have been the main sitting room, she saw it. Hanging on the far wall, mostly hidden behind a draping of dusty cloth, was a large, old portrait. It was dark with age, and the glass was hazy, but something about it called to her. With trembling hands, Emily carefully pulled aside the cloth. As the dust settled, Emily gasped. There, looking out from the painting, was a man. His hair was dark, his eyes were deep and kind, and he had a gentle smile on his lips. It was him. The man from her dreams, her dream husband, was staring back at her from the dusty canvas. Every detail, from the gentle curve of his nose to the quiet strength in his gaze, was exactly as she remembered him from her nightly visits. It was like looking at an old, dear friend. A powerful wave of emotion washed over Emily. Relief, joy, and a confirmation so strong it made her knees weak. Her dream was real. He was real. And he had lived in this very house. The world suddenly felt even more magical and mysterious than she had ever imagined. Emily stood rooted to the spot, her eyes fixed on the portrait of her dream husband. His kind gaze seemed to look right into her heart, confirming everything she had felt. She reached out a hand, almost touching the painted canvas, feeling a deep connection to this man from long ago. As she looked closer at the painting, her eyes drifted down to the man's neck. There, hanging from a thin chain, was a small silver locket. Her breath caught in her throat. It was shaped like a tiny heart, with delicate swirl, patterns etched into its front. It was old, but still beautiful. Emily's hand flew to her own pocket, pulling out the locket she had found on her pillow. She held it up, right next to the portrait, comparing the two. Her locket, the one that sometimes glowed when she thought of him, was exactly the same. The same size, the same heart shape, the very same delicate swirl pattern. There was no doubt. The locket she had, the one that had appeared as if by magic after her dream wedding, belonged to the man in the portrait. It was his locket. A shiver of understanding, stronger than any before, ran through her. This wasn't just a coincidence or a silly fancy. This was real magic, a true connection across time. The locket was a gift from him, a piece of his past that had found its way to her. It was a bridge between his world and hers, between the past and the present, between life and, well, something else. Her mind raced, putting all the pieces together. The merchant's story about a kind ghost who visited dreams, the description of the man, the locket he always wore, and now, finding that very locket on her pillow and seeing it in his portrait. It all meant one thing. The man in the portrait, her dream husband, was the kind, lonely ghost. And he had chosen her. The realization filled her with a profound sense of awe and a quiet, certain joy. Her heart, which had been so full of questions, now felt full of answers. With the locket clutched in one hand, and her eyes still fixed on the portrait, Emily felt an incredible wave of understanding wash over her. The dusty, quiet room no longer felt spooky or lonely. Instead, it felt special, almost sacred. A strange, warm connection bloomed in her chest, linking her to the old house and to the man in the painting. This wasn't just a house of forgotten memories. It was his home. And the man wasn't just a picture. He was her dream husband, a kind spirit who had found a way to reach her. She looked around the room, no longer seeing just cobwebs and dust, but imagining him living here, perhaps sitting by the fireplace, reading a book, or looking out the very window she now stood near. Emily knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her bones, that her dream had been more than just a dream. It was a message, a soft whisper from the past, guiding her to this very moment, to this very house. He had come to her in her sleep, not to frighten, but to connect, to tell her something important without words. The locket was his way of leaving a sign, a tangible piece of his world that she could hold in her hand. She closed her eyes for a moment, and in her mind she saw the glowing garden, heard the soft music, and felt the warmth of his hand in hers. It was all real. Her dream wedding hadn't been a fancy, but a true meeting of hearts, even if one heart was still tied to the earth in a different way. Emily opened her eyes, a new purpose shining in them. She felt a deep sense of responsibility, a quiet promise forming in her heart. He had reached out to her, and now it was her turn to reach back. This house, this portrait, this locket, and her dreams were all part of a story that needed to be heard. She was no longer just Emily from the quiet village. She was the girl who understood the language of dreams, the one chosen to help a lonely spirit. The connection was strong, a silent understanding that filled the air around her. After her amazing discoveries at the old stone house, Emily returned home, her mind swirling with newfound knowledge and a sense of purpose. She had found his portrait, held his locket, and felt his presence. Now she waited for nightfall, eager for her next dream, hoping for more answers. That night, as the moon cast its gentle light, Emily fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. She found herself in a place that felt both familiar and new. It was the glowing garden from her first dream, but brighter, more vibrant. And there, waiting for her, was her dream husband. He looked just as he did in the portrait, and just as she remembered him from countless dreams, but this time there was a difference. He was looking at her with a gentle, knowing smile, and his eyes held a deep, quiet light. He reached out his hand, and Emily took it, feeling a warmth that was more real than any dream before. Then, for the very first time, he spoke. His voice was soft, like a whisper of wind through the leaves, but clear and kind. "Emily," he said, his voice a melody she felt deep in her heart. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for believing." Emily's eyes widened. She could speak to him. "You are the ghost?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. He nodded, his smile growing softer. "Yes, Emily. I am a friendly ghost, a spirit tied to this place, to my old home. I mean no harm, only to find a connection, to be remembered." He looked around the beautiful dream garden. "This is where I find peace, and it is where I hope to find someone like you." The fear that had once flickered inside Emily completely vanished. His voice was so gentle, his presence so comforting. He truly was kind, just as the merchant had said, and just as she had always felt in her dreams. He wasn't a scary ghost. He was a lonely soul who had reached out to her, and now he was finally speaking. A wave of deep peace washed over Emily, knowing that her connection to him was not only real, but also understood. As the friendly ghost spoke, Emily felt a deep understanding blossom in her heart. The beautiful dream garden around them seemed to shimmer with his words. "I have been here, Emily," he continued, his voice still soft but full of a quiet longing, "tied to this place, to the memories of my life. For many, many years, I have longed for someone to truly see me, to understand, to believe." He looked at her with his kind, deep eyes. "It is a lonely existence, to be unseen, unheard, and forgotten. I have watched the seasons change, the villagers come and go, but no one truly felt my presence. I tried to reach out, to send whispers into dreams, hoping someone with a gentle heart and open mind would notice. You came to me," Emily whispered, remembering the joyful feeling of their dream wedding. He nodded. "Yes, I saw your pure heart, your beautiful dreams, and I knew you were the one. I hoped that if I could show you my kindness, if I could share a piece of my world with you, that you would believe." The locket was a small gift, a sign, hoping it would lead you to my old home. "You want to find peace," Emily said, remembering the merchant's words. "More than anything," the ghost replied, a hint of sadness in his gentle voice. "My spirit is restless, bound by a story untold, a life unremembered. To find peace, I need my story to be known, for the people of this village to remember the man I once was, not just a forgotten house or a spooky tale. I have been waiting for someone like you, to help me." Emily felt a surge of warmth and determination. She was not just a girl with pretty dreams anymore. She was important to this kind spirit. He had trusted her, chosen her. The weight of his long wait, his loneliness, settled softly on her heart, strengthening her resolve. She knew what she had to do. She had to help him, to be the one to finally bring him peace. The ghost's words echoed in Emily's dream, clear as crystal. He longed for peace, a peace that could only come from being remembered. As he spoke of his restless spirit and the need for his story to be known, Emily felt a deep understanding settle over her. It wasn't just about him finding peace. It was about honoring his life, ensuring he wouldn't be forgotten. "You want the villagers to know who you were," Emily said softly in her dream, looking into his kind eyes. "You want them to remember your goodness, your kindness, instead of just seeing an old, empty house." He nodded slowly, a gentle sadness in his expression. "Exactly, Emily. I lived a full life, filled with love for this village and its people. But over time, as new faces came and old ones faded, my memory faded too. My house became the whispering house, a place of fear, not of a life well lived. My spirit cannot truly rest until the warmth of remembrance fills the cold corners of forgetfulness." Emily felt a pang in her heart for his long, lonely wait. She imagined how sad it must be to exist, yet be unknown, to have lived, yet be forgotten. He wasn't asking for grand monuments or loud celebrations, just for his truth to be known, for his story to be a part of the village's memory once more. He didn't want to be a scary tale. He wanted to be a kind memory. "I understand," Emily said, her voice filled with a quiet strength. "You don't want to be forgotten. You want your true story to live on." A light, like the gentle glow of the locket, seemed to brighten around him. "Yes, Emily, you understand. That is all I ask. To simply be remembered for who I was, and to know that my home, this village, is still a place of warmth and kindness." Emily knew then, without a shadow of a doubt, that her dream was a sacred trust. She was not just a dreamer. She was a storyteller, chosen to carry this important tale. She had to make sure the ghost's story was remembered, so he could finally rest in peace. The task felt big, but her heart was full of courage and a deep love for this gentle spirit. Waking from her dream, Emily felt a quiet resolve settle deep within her heart. The ghost's plea for remembrance, his longing for peace, filled her with a sense of purpose. She knew it wouldn't be easy. The villagers were quick to dismiss her silly fancies. But this wasn't a fancy. This was a truth, a story that needed to be told, and she was the only one who could tell it. Emily decided then and there that she would share his story with the village. She would make sure everyone knew about the kind ghost, the man from the portrait, her dream husband. She wouldn't let him be forgotten. It felt like a big task for a young girl, but the warmth of the locket, still under her pillow, gave her courage. She spent the morning thinking about how to begin. She couldn't just shout it in the town square. People would laugh or, worse, be scared. She needed to be gentle, to show them the kindness she had felt in her dreams. She thought about her parents, who had simply smiled and brushed aside her first attempt to share her news. This time, she would have proof. She had the locket, and she had the memory of the portrait. Emily knew it was important to tell the whole story, from her first magical dream, to finding the locket, to the merchant's tale, and finally, to her visit to the old house. She would tell them about the ghost's kind eyes, his gentle voice, and his wish to be remembered. She would help them see him not as a scary spirit, but as a good man whose story had simply been lost to time. It was a daunting thought, standing before all the grown-ups and explaining something so unbelievable. But the ghost had trusted her, and Emily wouldn't let him down. She would gather her courage, find the right words, and open the hearts of her village to a story they had long forgotten. She would bring light to the forgotten corners of the old stone house, and peace to the kind spirit who dwelled there. The next evening, Emily decided it was time. She knew she had to start with the people closest to her. At dinner, after her father had finished telling a funny story about a runaway goat, and her mother was clearing the table, Emily took a deep breath. Her heart fluttered, but the ghost's kind voice from her dream gave her strength. "Mama, Papa," she began, her voice a little shaky but firm. "I need to tell you something important, something more than a dream." Her parents looked at each other, then back at her, a hint of gentle amusement on their faces. "More dream stories, Emily?" her father asked, a smile playing on his lips. "No, Papa, it's real," Emily insisted. She pulled the silver locket from her pocket, letting it rest in her palm. "This locket, remember? I told you it came from my dream husband." Her mother picked it up, her brow furrowed in a slight frown. "It's a beautiful piece, but where did it truly come from?" "It came from him," Emily said, her gaze steady. "The man I married in my dream. And he's real. He's a kind ghost, and he lives in the old stone house." Her parents' smiles faded, replaced by surprise, then a touch of worry. "Emily, dear," her mother began, "you mustn't fill your head with such spooky ideas." "But it's not spooky, Mama. He's kind." Emily stood up. "Come with me. I can show you." Though they were hesitant, Emily's earnestness and the locket in her hand convinced them. With her two best friends, Lily and Tom, also curious, they all walked to the old stone house. The sun was setting, casting long purple shadows, making the house look even more mysterious. Emily led them inside, past the dusty rooms, until she stood before the portrait. "Look," she said, pulling aside the dusty cloth. "This is him, my dream husband." Her mother gasped softly. Her father stared, his mouth slightly open. Lily and Tom crowded closer, their eyes wide. It was the face of a kind, handsome man, just as Emily had described. "And look here," Emily pointed to the locket around the man's neck in the painting. "It's the same locket. He gave it to me in my dream, to help me find him, to help him find peace." She then bravely told them the whole story, from her first magical dream to the merchant's tale, to the ghost's own words in her dream. She spoke of his loneliness, his longing to be remembered, and his kind heart. Her words hung in the quiet, dusty air, heavy with a truth that was hard to ignore. Her family and friends looked from the locket to the portrait, and then to Emily's shining, truthful eyes. As Emily finished her story in the dusty, quiet room of the old stone house, a hush fell over her small audience. Her parents, Lily and Tom, stood silently, looking from the locket in Emily's hand to the kind face in the portrait. At first, a ripple of fear went through them. Ghosts were usually scary things, tales told in hushed voices around campfires, meant to make you shiver. To think that a real one lived so close and had visited Emily's dreams was a frightening thought. Lily clutched Tom's arm, her eyes wide with a mix of wonder and worry. Emily's mother, usually so calm, looked pale, her hand going to her throat. Her father, who rarely showed fear, shifted his weight uncomfortably. "A ghost, Emily," her father finally managed to say, his voice a little shaky. "Are you sure?" "Yes, Papa," Emily answered, her voice clear and steady, filled with the certainty she felt. She held up the locket, which seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. "He's not a scary ghost. He's kind. He's lonely. He just wants to be remembered." She looked at each of them, her eyes shining with honest belief and a deep, true connection. She spoke again, not just with words, but with all the warmth and feeling she had for the gentle spirit. She described the peace she felt in his dream garden, the comfort of his presence, and the sadness in his voice when he spoke of being forgotten. She told them how he loved the village, and simply wanted his true story to be known. Slowly, as Emily spoke, their fear began to soften. They saw not a spooky ghost in her words, but a lonely soul, just as the merchant had described. They looked at the kind face in the portrait, then at the real locket, and then back at Emily, whose face was so full of earnest truth. Her words were simple, but they were honest, coming from her heart. And because of that, they listened. They truly listened, starting to see the kindness in the story, not just the fright. The old stone house felt a little less scary, and a little more like a place of a forgotten life. After that evening, Emily's parents and friends left the old stone house with a new look in their eyes. They didn't speak much on the way home, but the quiet was different now, filled with thought rather than dismissal. Emily knew she had planted a seed of belief. Word of Emily's story, told with such heartfelt honesty, and backed by the locket and the portrait, began to spread through the village. At first, there were whispers of disbelief, and some people still shook their heads, calling it a child's imagination. But others, especially those who remembered the old merchant's tale, or who had always felt a strange, sad quietness around the old stone house, started to listen with open hearts. Emily continued to share the story, talking to neighbors by the well, to older folks sitting on their porches, and to other children playing in the fields. She spoke of the ghost's kindness, his love for the village, and his longing to be remembered. She showed them the locket, sometimes letting it glow softly when she spoke of him, and invited them to see the portrait if they dared. Slowly, like the gentle melting of snow in spring, the villagers' minds began to change. The fear of the whispering house began to fade, replaced by a quiet respect for the lonely spirit. They started to remember old stories their grandparents might have told, stories of a kind man who once lived there, a man who loved flowers and helped his neighbors. Then, one sunny morning, Emily saw something new. At the gate of the old stone house, a small bunch of wildflowers had been left, tied with a simple ribbon. The next day there were more. Soon it became a quiet tradition. Villagers, young and old, would leave fresh flowers, sometimes a small, smooth stone, or a sprig of rosemary, at the entrance of the house. These were not offerings of fear, but gestures of remembrance, of respect, and of kindness. The whispering house was slowly becoming the house of flowers, a place where a forgotten life was finally being honored. Emily's heart swelled with joy. Her kind ghost was no longer alone, no longer forgotten. Seeing the growing pile of wildflowers and small tokens at the gate of the old stone house, Emily felt a warmth spread through her chest. It was a feeling deeper and more satisfying than any dream she had ever had. The villagers were truly listening, truly remembering. Her dream husband was no longer a lonely, forgotten spirit. Every time she walked past the house, and saw the fresh offerings, a quiet joy settled in her heart. She often paused, touching a soft petal or a smooth stone, knowing that each one was a whisper of remembrance from the village. She would hold her silver locket, now openly worn around her neck, and feel its familiar, gentle warmth. It was a silent conversation between her and the kind ghost, a confirmation that his story was finally taking root. This feeling was more than just happiness. It was a sense of accomplishment, a deep comfort in knowing she had done something truly good. She had been the bridge between a forgotten past and a remembering present. She had given a voice to the unheard and brought peace to a restless spirit. It was a powerful feeling for a young girl, to know that her gentle heart and brave words had made such a difference. Emily often thought of her dreams, which still visited her, but now they felt different too. They were still beautiful, but they carried a lighter, more joyful tone. She felt the ghost's presence as a gentle breeze, a soft light, no longer burdened by loneliness. He was still there, but his essence felt peaceful, complete. Knowing she had helped her dream husband find the peace he had longed for filled Emily with a quiet pride. She had faced her fears, spoken her truth, and in doing so, had healed a hurt that spanned generations. Her heart sang with a silent song of gratitude and love, for the ghost, for the magic of her dreams, and for the kind heart that had led her on this special journey. The world, once just a quiet village, now felt like a tapestry woven with hidden wonders and true connections. With the village now openly honoring the kind spirit at the old stone house, Emily felt a deep contentment. The air around the house, once heavy with forgotten sorrow, now hummed with gentle remembrance. Emily knew her dream husband was finding his peace. One night, as Emily drifted into sleep, she found herself in the glowing garden one last time. It was even more beautiful than before, bathed in a soft, bright light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Her dream husband stood before her, his kind eyes twinkling with a joy she had never seen there before. He looked peaceful, truly at peace. He smiled, a radiant, warm smile that filled Emily's heart with happiness. "Emily," he said, his voice a gentle melody, stronger and clearer than it had ever been. "You have done it. You have brought me peace." Emily felt tears prick her eyes, but they were tears of joy. "They remember you," she whispered. "The village remembers your kindness." "Yes," he replied, his hand reaching out, not to touch her, but to gesture to the bright, shimmering garden around them. "I feel it now, the warmth of their hearts, the whispers of their memories. My spirit is no longer bound by loneliness, no longer restless. I am free." He looked at her, his gaze full of gratitude and a deep, unspoken love. "Thank you, my dear Emily, for your courage, for your belief, for your kind heart. You are a true light in this world." Then, slowly, like morning mist touched by the sun, his form began to fade. The edges of his body softened, growing more transparent, more like the light itself. Emily watched, her heart full, knowing this was goodbye. He was moving on, finally finding his rest. "Go in peace," she whispered, a tear tracing a path down her cheek. He gave her one last beautiful smile, a silent promise of eternal gratitude. And then he was gone, dissolved into the shimmering light of the dream. The garden remained, still glowing, but his presence, the one she had grown to know so well, was now a part of the peace that filled it. Emily woke up with a soft sigh, a feeling of bittersweet happiness in her heart. She knew he was finally at rest. After her final dream, Emily woke with a sense of calm and completion. The ghost had found his peace, and a quiet joy settled in her heart. She continued to live in her peaceful village, but her life was now richer, touched by a magic that others could only imagine. Emily grew up, but she never forgot the kind ghost or the extraordinary journey her dreams had taken her on. She still had beautiful dreams, but they were no longer about her dream husband. Instead, they were filled with new wonders, colors, and stories, as if the magic in her had grown even stronger. She learned to trust her inner feelings, knowing that sometimes the most unbelievable things could be true. She kept the silver locket always, wearing it close to her heart. It was a cherished treasure, a reminder of her unique connection to the spirit world and the brave act of kindness she had performed. When she was older, she would sometimes tell her own children and grandchildren the story of the girl who married a ghost in her sleep. She would tell it not as a scary tale, but as a beautiful story of love, belief, and the power of remembering. Her children would listen with wide, sparkling eyes, just as her friends had once done. They would ask about the ghost, and Emily would describe his kind smile and gentle eyes, making him feel real to them too. She taught them to be open to wonder, to listen to their hearts, and to never be afraid of what is different. Emily's life was happy and full. She found love and built a family, but a special part of her heart always held a place for the gentle spirit who had visited her dreams. She understood that kindness and remembrance could reach across time, and even beyond life itself. She knew that her dreams were not just fleeting images, but powerful messages, capable of changing the world, even if just a small part of it, for the better. And she always cherished the incredible power of her own dreams, which had led her to such a wonderful and meaningful adventure. As Emily grew, her life was filled with the quiet magic of her dreams and the lasting memory of the kind ghost. But her influence wasn't only on her own heart. The entire village changed because of her courage and belief. The old stone house, once avoided and whispered about, slowly transformed. The villagers, no longer seeing it as a scary place, began to visit it, not with fear, but with respect. The overgrown garden was gently tended, not fully restored, but kept neat and tidy. The rusty gate no longer creaked in a spooky way, but opened with a soft sigh to welcome those who came. Children, once warned away, now walked up the path, sometimes leaving their own small drawings or polished stones. Adults would pause at the entrance, perhaps to remember a grandparent's story of the kind man who lived there, or simply to appreciate the quiet peace that now settled around the old walls. The portrait inside was cleaned carefully, its kind face now clearly visible, looking out at a world that finally remembered him. The house became a place of quiet beauty and memory. It wasn't fixed up like a new home. Instead, it held the charm of age, softened by care and remembrance. The heavy, dark feeling that once hung around it lifted, replaced by a sense of calm and gentle warmth. Birds began to nest in the eaves, and wildflowers, carefully planted by villagers, bloomed brightly around the stone walls. No longer the whispering house or the old stone house, it simply became known as the kind man's home, a place that held a treasured part of the village's history. It stood as a quiet reminder of Emily's brave heart, the power of belief, and the enduring strength of kindness and remembrance. The house itself seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, finally at peace, just like the spirit who once called it home. The old stone house once a place of shadows and forgotten tales, now stood as a gentle reminder of a life remembered. But the story itself, the journey of Emily and the kind ghost, became even more important than the house. As years turned into decades and Emily's own hair turned silver, the tale she first told as a young girl became a beloved village legend. It was passed down from parent to child, whispered by the hearth on cold nights, and shared under the shade of the village's oldest oak tree on warm summer afternoons. The story was always called "The Girl Who Married a Ghost in Her Sleep." It wasn't a scary ghost story, but a tale of kindness, belief, and the magic that can be found in unexpected places. Children would ask their grandmothers, "Tell us about Emily and her dream husband," and the grandmothers would smile, remembering Emily's sparkling eyes and the way she held her silver locket. The details of the story became part of the village's heart. Everyone knew about Emily's beautiful dreams, the mysterious locket, the kind ghost's gentle smile in the portrait, and how Emily's brave words brought peace to a lonely spirit. The story taught the villagers to be open-minded, to listen to their hearts, and to believe in the unseen wonders of the world. It reminded them that even the smallest act of kindness could have a lasting impact. The story of Emily and the ghost was more than just a tale. It was a lesson. It showed that love and remembrance could bridge any gap, even the one between life and what comes after. It became a comforting thought, a reminder that no one is ever truly forgotten if there is someone to remember them. And so, the quiet village, once known for its peaceful ways, became famous for its beautiful story, a story that lived on, as bright and full of wonder as Emily's own dreams.